Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classes of Mail. Boy, we got another one, don't we, Michael?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, all right. So Michael is here with me today, and we had our branch meeting last night. So yeah, we had another doozy of a meeting.
Some good and some bad.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good, Michael. Yeah. So, right, listeners will know that we got that presidential ruling that said that you could run for more than one position, that you could run for officer and for steward. Because technically...
Well, for anybody to know, we actually went through the nominations yesterday.
Yeah, last night was our meeting for nominations. Right.
And re-election nomination.
Right, the rerun of our election, because the first one was tainted so badly that it had to be rerun and overseen by National.
Right.
And in an effort to forestall any problems, we got a presidential ruling in advance of the nomination meeting so that the issue could be put to bed.
And just to FYI, we actually had an overseer, basically.
We did.
Have National to oversee our election. And there were two people that was here, but there were supposed to be three.
There you go.
And it came out to be... It looked like it's going to be fair this time.
It does. I agree. I'm very happy with the way they're running it so far. Everything seems on the up and up. Like today, we got emails that said, hey, this is what the branch's policy is going to be on distributing your literature. And so this is the way you're going to have to do it if you want the branch to distribute it for you. And that's like straight out of the election rules. Man,
right.
This is great.
Right.
You know what the policy was before about the branch distributing literature?
I don't know.
Right. And so, this is already a big improvement. And you know what? Before we get into the story, since we have this captive audience, because they know something's coming, we should talk about who we're endorsing for the various positions, right? Let's get that business out of the way in the beginning.
Yeah, well, let's...
Well, no, because that will kind of spoil it, though.
Yeah. So, we'll talk about the voting for...
Yeah. Okay.
We'll talk about what happened with the running for two positions.
All right, so we'll talk about that first. So, again, if you haven't heard the backstory on this, go back and listen to we got another presidential ruling, and it's a big one. Mm-hmm. And then the second episode about that, which like another letter from National or something like that was only like 3 episodes ago.
Right.
Because I wrote to Brian Renfro, because our bylaws say that you can only be nominated for one office. And there appears to be a distinction between officer positions and steward positions. And the reality is...
So I sent an email to Brian Renfro and Paul Barner.
Yeah.
And then Alan sent it as a letter.
Yeah, right.
And the response I got...
No, mine was by email too.
By email also?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I just now kind of have a better handle on it.
But I sent it first.
Yeah.
I beat you.
You didn't beat me at anything. I'm the one who got the response.
I know, but I beat you on that, sending it first.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is we had the only response that I got was from our national business agent said that, you can only run for one position.
Right. But that's not what our bylaws say.
But she didn't mention any rules.
Right.
Except her words, and that's it. And so I'm like, that's not a good way to tell us anything is up.
Right.
So Alan sent another email to Brian Renfro.
And that email that I sent...
He's more articulate, that's why.
And Renfro's response was all laid out in that one episode.
Yes, and he explained about all the rules.
Yeah, and then as soon as I got that response, I sent it to our branch president. Because
even though we have all these things going on, how much we hate Renfro because, he didn't do such a good job on the TA and la-da-da-da, but I'll tell you what... But when he makes his decisions, he sends the letters very
very clear. His decisions are clear, and I believe he's interpreting correctly.
Yeah, and quoting articles, which is great.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful, right? Laying out very specific things. And so when our when I sent that copy to the branch president, it turns out he immediately turned around and sent another letter to Renfro.
Oh, well, yeah. So there was a letter that came from Brian Renfro saying, hey, you can run for two positions.
Yeah.
And I guess our president didn't like it.
Right.
And sent a rebuttal letter to Brian.
Right. And the rebuttal was not very persuasive because...
Well, we don't know what the letter said.
We don't know what he said, but we know it wasn't persuasive because we got that follow-up letter from Renfro that says, like I said before, you can run for both positions. Because now, here's the reality of it. They are two separate elections. And that's made clear in the way it's laid out in the Constitution, the way the voting happens, the rules governing election procedures, and in Renfro's ruling, that there's an officer election and a steward election.
Now, anybody who has listened to Alan's podcast, it literally says that, we have to follow what the bylaw says.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So in our bylaws, they are two separate elections. There's officer and steward elections because the officer election is branch wide. All the members get to vote for that. The steward elections are station by station. And in many branches, these elections are also run separate temporally. That like one election will be 6 months after the other one. Like in New York, branch 36 or 38, whatever it is, they do it like 6 months later. They have their steward elections. And so if you think about it like that, if you think about the way they run their election, we know that Carlton and the other Brian, that they wound up losing. And then 6 months later, there's a steward election. Should they be barred from running in that steward election that's 6 months later? When you see it laid out like that, that shows you how ludicrous that position is. No, of course they should not be barred from running in an election where they are perfectly viable candidates.
So let's say that, of course, I'm running for president.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, they do a steward election because I lost the president.
Yeah.
I can still run for steward.
Your participation in the first election should not bar you from your participation in the second election.
Right.
And that is consistent with Renfro's presidential ruling because they're separate elections. And in his ruling, he specified, like, as long as the stewards aren't officers, as long as dual service is not prohibited, where you can't serve.
Or in the bylaws, it strictly says that you cannot run for both positions.
Right.
But nothing like that is in our bylaws.
Right. And I sent him the language in our bylaws. And I would think that when our branch president sent his rebuttal, did he send the language in the bylaws?
I would have no clue.
I would have no clue either. But whatever he sent, it was not persuasive. All right.
Maybe it was just a middle finger, picture of a middle finger. Maybe. Because he didn't give a crap whatever, whatever our president Renfro said.
So we go into this meeting, and now we have our plans that I'm going to run for steward and I'm going to run for branch secretary. And Michael is going to run for steward and he's going to run for president. And so we're ready to go. And we know there's going to be shenanigans. There's always shenanigans. What are the shenanigans going to be? But at least we know that we don't have to worry about that got settled. And I talked to other people high up in the NALC, other presidents, and they're like, yeah, whatever it is that you might have to worry about, you're not going to have to worry about this. And, who knows what else he'll do, but the presidential ruling, that's it. That shit's settled.
Right.
So we now, it's the day of the meeting, and we get a leak from someone on the executive board who calls one of our supporters to let them know, hey, just so you know, the branch president is planning on overriding the presidential ruling.
Yep.
Now, in the presidential ruling, and I have it right here, just a sec. This is the key in the presidential ruling. I may caution, this is from Renfro. He says, I must caution, however, that it would be inappropriate for me as national president to resolve any issues about the meaning of the bylaws. Such disputes must be resolved in the first instance at the branch level. And so he is correct about that. The branch has the authority to interpret its own bylaws. And our branch president, in the first case, has the authority to interpret the bylaws. And so this is the gambit that he says, hey, I'm the president. In the letter from Renfro, it says I can interpret our bylaws. And so I'm making an interpretation that our bylaws say, no, you can only run for one. You can't participate in both elections.
But our bylaws, nowhere does it say.
No, they don't say that. Right. And so his argument is past practice, that this is the way we've always done it.
Oh, that sounds so familiar.
It does sound familiar.
Just because you're always doing it that way doesn't mean to always break the rules either.
Right. And that is not the flex you think it is. That is an indictment that we have been disenfranchising people for a long time.
Yes.
And that is not okay.
Yeah.
And so yes, he does have the right to make this determination, to make his interpretation.
So he decides to fight it by bringing his buddies that's retired. And so we had like a dozen retirees show up that we have never seen before.
I mean, that's always the way. You know, there's probably other people who. I mean,
here's the thing: is the same retirees that show up for the meetings. Okay, they do that.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, a retirees that's been retired for like 15 years.
Well, dude,
shows up.
Yeah, because he got the pin.
Yeah.
Right. And when's the last union meeting you went to where they actually handed out pins at the union
like last
meeting?
year?
At least. Yeah. So anyway, dude, it was nice, right? It was a cool thing to see the people, got his 45-year service pin. Our buddy Trevor got his 25-year service pin. And so that's cool. But that was really the prelude for the president to be able to say, like, hey, you've been in this branch a long time. Isn't this the way we've always done it?
Right. And then the retiree who has never been to the meeting in over 15, 20 years decides to make arguments for our president.
So our branch president gets up there and he says, I'm making this decision. And, the gist of his argument is past practice. Now, in Renfro's letter, he specifies the conditions under which this could be prohibited. And past practice is not on there, right? What he says is if the stewards are officers. Our stewards are not officers.
Right.
Renfro's letter says if the stewards are elected by the entire membership. Our stewards are not. They're elected by branch. And he says if dual service is prohibited, like you can't be an officer and a steward at the same time.
So now
our service is not prohibited.
They were using past practice saying that we've always had one position, but that's a lie too, because we've seen and heard
nominations.
We've heard of people running for multiple positions. I know by somebody who told me, who's been with the post office for 25 plus years, said there was a guy named Mike Steiger who used to be a treasurer for our branch, also was a steward at Meadow Mesa.
Right, the dual service, we know that's well established, right? That dual service is not prohibited. So the conditions that Renfro laid out, because again, I sent him the bylaws, that none of those conditions are met.
Yeah.
Under which this might be prohibited. And so here we have
now. Oh, by the way, we sent the letter that Alan got. I told Alan to send it immediately to our president so that he knows what's coming up.
Right, exactly.
Because that's the right. Yeah, we're not trying to railroad him or hide stuff on him.
Right, exactly. So he uses this argument and, he makes his ruling. And so now we have this problem. And the problem is that our branch bylaws, by his interpretation, are now in conflict with the Constitution.
Yes.
Luckily, we have Article 11. And so I immediately appeal, using Article 11, I appeal his decision to the branch. Now, dear listeners of Classes of Mail, you know how this is going to go. You already know how this is going to play out. Barring something exceptional, you have the executive board that essentially votes as a block.
Which is, there's 11 of them.
Yeah. And then you have the retirees.
But a dozen of them.
Who are basically going to vote however the executive board votes. And then you have
the rest, who are his
people.
Allies.
Well, yeah, right. He's got some allies in the audience as well. Right. But then you have, aside from those two clumps, you have actual working carriers who put the mail in the box. Now, the retirees and the e-board, they're going to vote with the president. And that the people who put the mail in the box are going to vote with me and Michael. And so the question is, how close is this going to be? And how is this going to play out? So I make my appeal, and then I get to speak, and I make essentially the same arguments that you just heard. And I let people know that, hey, if you sustain what this president is trying to do, then that means that you're going to disenfranchise people. You're going to prevent people from running for office, and you're guaranteeing that this election is going to be run a third time.
And here's the sad part is after the meeting, I talked to some of those people who voted for our president. Oh, I didn't even know that's what we're doing. I'm like, then weren't you not listening?
Right.
They're just there to raise hand for our president. They weren't even listening to what were being said.
You're right. It's a story that we hear again and again. And so, I make my case. And here's something that shocked me is the Goodest Oldest Boy got up to speak in favor of the motion, which it was my motion to override the president's decision. And he gets up like somebody spoke against the
That would be
motion.
our branch president's decision.
The branch president's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So somebody had just spoken against my motion, and then the Goodest Oldest Boy gets up to speak, and I'm like, hey man, we just had somebody speak against the motion.
Yeah, Ellen was like, whoa, what?
Yeah,
like,
it's not your turn.
He's saying he's for the motion.
Yeah. And so that was funny, and sure enough, he spoke for the motion.
Yeah.
And his argument, it was a funny argument because it was like a backhanded compliment.
But then Blaine was saying that you didn't talk to him.
Yeah. So he goes, I know that if we make this vote, Alan's going to file an appeal, and it's going to go to the National Committee on Appeals.
And we're
going to run this election a third time. And so... yeah, so he implored the branch not to vote for it, but he was the lone nay vote on the executive board. And so when it finally came time to vote, the vote wound up 38-32 in favor of the president.
32 is the active carriers and a few retirees that voted for us. That means we were overwhelmingly beating the executive
right,
board
once again, right, Right, you have this executive board that votes essentially as a block, right, with the one holdout this time. And then you have the people who they've brought, for this special purpose. And then, I mean, it's not like we don't have our own supporters, right? We do. We have people, there were people from my station. They're going to vote with me. This is the way that this works. But you take the pulse of the rank and file worker, and they're voting with us, but it's not enough to overcome. Hold on. Because to put a point on it, you have the branch executive board voting against the rank and file working carrier. If those two votes are tallied, the rank and file carriers have a majority going one way, and the executive board has a majority going the other way. That's what's happening.
Yeah. So in reality, who's supporting the active carriers?
You and I.
Yeah.
Clearly. Right? We're the ones speaking up on their behalf, and they're resonating with them. And once again, our executive board goes against the carriers. So it was enough to carry the day. And so that his interpretation holds. So now what?
Yeah. But he's breaking our bylaws and our
breaking
Constitution.
the Constitution, right.
But in our Constitution says that you are not allowed to break the Constitution or bylaws.
So that's it, right? This right that the president or the branch president has to interpret the bylaws and the right that the branch has to follow up on that ruling. They absolutely have that right, but that right is not unlimited. That right is not without caveats because you can't make a ruling that violates the Constitution. And so my position is that ruling is out of order. It's inappropriate. And it took bylaws that were in harmony with the Constitution and now makes them out of harmony with the Constitution. And so that's part one. Part two, what the fuck is a presidential ruling worth if he could just go up there and say like, nah, that doesn't apply to us, even though it specifically was in our case.
So does that mean that his ruling we can just ignore too?
That's a great question. Well, as we all know, and this has been covered on Classes in Mail, any rule is only as good as its enforcement mechanism. And so I guess that's what we find out next.
Yeah, because now we send appeal letters and
what happens if Brian Renfro makes a presidential ruling and then you don't abide by it.
Right.
What happens next?
Right.
Well, we're going to find out because it went down last night. So now we get to the next immediate order of business is the nominations. And now, like, our team is kind of thrown into disarray.
Right.
Because we had a number of people
that's going to run for an officer position and a steward position.
Right. Because they know the retaliatory nature of our branch, that if they run for an officer position, they're not going to be appointed as a steward. Right. Because, I mean, look at the two of us, right? And so now people got to make these decisions. And suddenly our slate, I mean, it's not a slate, but it's like-minded people.
Right.
Suddenly it's not as full as it used to be.
Right.
And suddenly we don't have a candidate for vice president.
Right.
And so that means that if Michael wins, which obviously that's the plan, he's going to need a vice president.
Right.
And so Michael peer pressured me into running for vice president. So once again, I'm running for vice president.
Again, was running for vice president previously before, so he's just doing the same thing.
Right. When the field was wide open the first time, I ran for vice president, and I'm running for vice president again.
Well, I told Alan that, hey, you got to run as the vice president because the person that you're running is a lot weaker than the person that you're against on secretary. Because he's going against the Goodest Oldest Boy on secretary.
Yeah, it's true.
And the chances of that going against a bunch of retirees is probably not going to be as good. Right. So I told him he's got to run as the VP and not secretary.
Right. Yeah. So there you go. So that's
so that. Anyway, nominations for anyone that's listening. I know this could be boring for people nationally, right? But this is who we're gonna.
We should say who we're supporting.
Who we're supporting and endorsing for Las Vegas.
Right. Go ahead, grab the list, and this is our endorsements for. And it's not a slate per se, except for maybe Michael and me, but it is definitely these are the people we support. Go for it.
So for president.
Yeah. Who do you like for president?
I think somebody named Michael Braismley.
Okay. All right. That's cool. We'll go with that. I second that.
Yeah. And then the executive vice president that we endorse.
Yeah, we endorse.
Would be Ladina Long.
Agreed. I endorse Ladina. Absolutely.
The vice president.
Yeah. Who do you like for that?
Oh, man. I think it's somebody named Alan Gigax.
Hey, good job on the pronunciation. Okay. Yeah, that's me. All right.
Okay. And then for treasurer, we endorse Derek Smith.
Yep.
Okay.
Incidentally, Derek Smith, you guys have heard from my campaign advisor, Rich. He's been on the show before. I actually have an episode with him that's been in the can for like 2 weeks, but so much other stuff keeps coming up that I can't publish it. So Derek
is my advisor.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the dude is sharp.
He's the one who actually taught me how to be a steward. How to be aggressive steward, but not too aggressive.
Yeah, there you go.
So being like
you forgot about the not too aggressive
passive
part.
aggressive part. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's the one who told me how to be more diplomatic than being too aggressive.
Okay. I don't think that part took.
No, you don't understand.
I don't know what you were before.
Before I was way worse.
Right. Okay. So Derek, what's his last name?
Smith.
Derek Smith. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then Secretary Jerry Penn by acclamation.
Yep, he's in. Okay. Automatically.
And then for health benefit officer, we recommend Jeanette Litviak.
All right.
Okay. And then Sergeant of Arms, DC, won that by acclamation.
All right. Yeah, you don't need to bother with the people who are in. This is just who we're endorsing. Oh, okay. All right. Moving.
Trustees.
Yes.
You can vote for 5
up
trustees.
To 5, right.
But we only endorse 4.
Yeah.
And
if
those
you got another one you like, by all means.
And those are Nancy Birdsong.
Right on.
Jonathan Munoz, Lori Worley, and Lauren Summer McDade.
Right on.
Those are the people that we recommend. And there's a couple of people on there who are spouses or girlfriend of our treasurer and president is the one that I definitely do not recommend.
Okay, duly noted. All right, so there's our endorsements. All right, so that's the big thing that came out of that meeting. And it's such a wild thing. Like when you see a presidential ruling on an issue, and we know this because we talk to other branch presidents, we talk to even people in the know here, and they're like, yeah, that's it. It's settled, right? There's no getting around it. He made his ruling. And so for our branch president to do the opposite and be like, no, I don't think so. It's wild, man. And so we're all going to learn something here, right? Classes of Mill continues to be educational.
Right.
Because what happens when you get a presidential ruling and it doesn't stick?
And our branch president ignores the national president's ruling. So we'll find out exactly what's going to happen here.
Well, I mean, he didn't ignore it fully because, in the one that was written to him, it says specifically, as branch president, you have the authority to rule on the meaning of the branch bylaws. That's what it says. Mm-hmm. And so that's what he did.
Mm-hmm. And whatever on his own way,
right,
without actually following the rules.
Yeah, he just ignored everything else that Renfro said in that letter about how you make this decision.
He read that sentence and says, oh, he gave me authority to do whatever I want.
Right.
Sweet. Instead of reading the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good times. Anything else in the meeting you want to cover?
Yes.
All right, go
ahead. So previously, one meeting ago, which was 2 months ago, and they were getting approval to go to the California State Convention to send like 9 people to the state convention. And me, being me,
Yeah.
I asked the question like, why are you sending those people to state convention? That's California.
Right.
Because we're from Nevada.
Right, because it was the regular branch officers, the full-time officers, and then all the Formal A
and the
stewards.
Formal A stewards.
Yeah.
Okay. And their response was, well, there's going to be Formal A training, and so we want to send all those people to that training. Well,
Okay.
then our arbitration advocate said that at the meeting yesterday, saying that why are we sending so many people to California State Convention when they're only going to the meeting for 1 day? And the reason that she's saying that is because at the California State meeting, when they were actually going through a meeting, they kicked everybody out.
I don't
Because
know.
it's only for Californians.
I can't speak to any of that.
Yeah. Well,
but-
no, because that's what she
yeah.
told me. But anyway, so they were really only there for 1 day for training, which was not even arbitration training. I'm sorry, not Formal A training.
Right. The state conventions
Yeah.
are about political activism. And yeah, I can't speak to any of this,
Yeah.
right? Michael, you're flying solo on this one.
Hey, this is what I was told. Okay.
Yeah.
And so my thing is why are we spending so much money on Brent's thing? And they were there for more than 3 days for 1 day of training.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Okay, so that's where I got a little bit upset yesterday when it looks like they lied to us and went for free vacation.
The expense was approved in advance. you
Well,
know.
yeah, but they
Yeah.
lied to get that expense approved because they told me that they were going to Formula A training, and then of course they denied it afterwards. They like always do. Okay,
Right.
and then another thing that happened at the meeting that I was not happy.
Oh boy.
Okay, so
I don't know what he's about to say.
Yeah, so on this part is that in one of the carriers, their child died and wanted to pass a hat around to collect some money to help out the family, and because somebody who's running it that our branch president doesn't like, he kept ignoring her, and then she passed a motion to pass this hat around. Then he made some excuse saying that, maybe that person is not in good standing, so they wouldn't go check it out. And then she went and found out that he was in good standings, and then tried
Is
to
that
come
what
back.
they were doing over at that side
Yes,
table?
yes.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, after all these other things happened, one of the carrier goes, "Well, I want to end the meeting." He goes,
Right,
"Done,"
meeting's over.
and closed it. And then
Dude.
so the money was never collected for a carrier who lost their child trying to do something good for their family. And she was so angry about that. I'm angry about that. And I'm sure that station is mad about that.
Right.
Because really, this was to help out a carrier who's going through grief, maybe through funeral costs. You know how expensive they are.
Right.
To help out a fellow carrier.
Yeah, it's something that's fairly common at our meetings that we'll pass the hat for this or that.
And he was making all kinds of excuses. There used to be no excuse to help out a carrier. And now all of a sudden, yesterday, they're making all kinds of excuses.
So
maybe because they spent $9,000 on this thing, but they ran out of money.
No, our branch has plenty of money.
Well, I know that.
Yeah. So, I wasn't really paying attention to that, but I did notice, like, just as a casual observer, because I had a bunch of other shit going on at that point, she made this motion and I'm ready. Like, okay, I guess the hat's coming around. And then it never happened. And I'm like, wait, what happened? What happened between here and there?
Well,
Yeah.
they go, well, maybe that guy is not in good standings.
Wow.
But they had never asked before to help out a fellow carrier.
They have never asked. But I will say there was a nuance to this one, but it should have been very readily resolved, is that she didn't want to say the name of the person because that person didn't want like that grief. Mm-hmm. There's perfectly good reasons not to want everybody to know that your kid just died.
But she let the president know who that was.
Exactly. Right. And so it was clearly on the up and up, and then the hat never got passed.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so she left the meeting just completely angry and walked out.
Yeah.
And but this is the branch we got right now. It's just that if you do stuff that our branch president doesn't like, he does things to other carriers. But here's the thing. So how is that good for our branch when we're doing stuff for fellow carriers? And so this is
what we're up against.
This is what we're dealing with.
That's the refrain. This is all right. So guys, I will let you know what happens next. I will let you know what happens when you get a presidential ruling and then it doesn't go that way, because it's got to be almost uncharted territory. Like I wouldn't be, because I wrote a letter to Renfro today saying like, hey, what happens now?
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if like there really isn't much precedent for that.
Well, and on that, so do we ignore presidential rulings from now on?
That's a great question.
I mean, what the heck?
Yeah. I don't know. But dude, in the meantime, you talk about abuse of process, right? He gets to do this. The nominations went on. I did not get to be nominated for steward. Neither did Michael. Neither did other people get to be nominated for officer positions if they made the other choice.
Yeah, because they hate the retaliatory part, so they decide not to run for the office position.
And so that's who is now going on to the ballots. And that's who's going to be in the election. And so he gets his way in the short term until all of this gets unfucked. And that's one of the ways that the system is kind of broken. So, all right, guys, I will keep you posted on that. And Michael, thank you very much for coming over and talking about this stuff. Maybe we'll do another mailbag episode. Oh, dude, hold on. We got corrections from the last mailbag episode.
Okay.
So one is like our interpretation of opportunities in Article 8. Like there was a question about the guy was on vacation and they got dinged for opportunities. Dude, opportunities are a shit show. Because I talked like I
we did say that it was a shit show.
Yeah.
That was management's use.
Well, no. The definition of what an opportunity is a shit show.
Right.
Because like I got a call from David Grosskopf to say like, hey, if you read what it actually says at the bottom of that part of the JCAM, like they talk about this and that can be counted as an opportunity. And like, it was weird the way the language worked. And then I talked to like the Roseville Wrecking Ball, who in his, like Corey calls that dude an Article 8 genius. And I asked him like, hey man, what's the definition for opportunity? And he's like, oh, it really varies. And like, there's some people that opportunity is defined in their LMOU, in their local memorandum. And what counts as opportunity in other places is based on precedence.
Right.
And like, it's a fucking mess.
And that is the reason why I said that opportunity is something that management uses to excuse as an excuse.
Yeah.
And that we, as in steward and management, are talk about what the opportunities are and what they can prove and what they can prove and things like that.
Right.
And that is why I said that opportunity is something for management to try to fight
Let them
us
make
on.
that fight. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And so that was really interesting. And so what I think what I'm going to have to do is I asked Joshua Shrum if he would have an episode just on what is an opportunity.
Right.
And dude, it's a hell of a task. And what the fuck is like, how has this been in our contract for this long and it's not clearly defined?
Right.
What the hell is that?
And that's something that a good steward will know how to argue that with a
that's
supervisor.
the thing, right?
Yeah.
That's there's more nuance to this than there should be.
On an equitability, I won over 70,000 on one of them. So
yeah, right. And I've won my equitabilities fighting the same way, you know. And so it's what a mess. All right, and then the other thing was we recorded that episode before the decision out of Buffalo came out about the geofence and stuff. And so, dude, definitely management's full of shit. There is no requirement of where you have to scan and whatever. And so, dude, great. I'm happy to be corrected on that one. That's awesome, man. Yeah, give management hell that they can't change working conditions without talking to us about it.
Right.
And so you want to scan your shit at the end of the day? Scan it at the end of the day.
Yeah. And again, like I said before.
Yeah.
If it's at the end of the day, ask management what to do.
Right. Because we're talking about following management instructions. And mind you, this podcast is geared toward carriers. And follow management instruction is prudent policy. You know, let the union fight out whether that's a valid instruction or not.
Right.
Because as a carrier, if management tells you to scan it, I mean, you're still going to be subject to discipline. And in Dave's interview on Classes of Mail, he talked about that at the Niagara station or whichever one, there had been a ton of discipline issues.
Right.
And you don't want to be in the ass end of that discipline.
But again, if you're just following instructions, usually that discipline will get thrown out because what else can you do? You're following instructions.
Yeah. Right, exactly. You when in doubt, ask the supervisor because if they're wrong, it's on them.
Yeah,
I did what you told me to do. Yeah. All right. So dude, and one more thing is just today I got an email from Ibrahim or Abraham. I forget his last name at the moment, but a regular emailer. And he reminded me because we also had the question about on your scanner, when the person's normally home and you're going to reattempt it the next day, that on your scanner in the morning, you can scan that package, go into option 4, other, and then option 1, out for redelivery. And so you should do that. Yeah, it's built right into the scanner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after whatever you do on day 1, which is what the real question was about, on day 2, out for redelivery. All right. That's all we got. Michael, thank you for coming. And we'll talk about what we're going to do next when we're done recording. So guys, thank you very much for listening, and I will catch you all next time.